Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us at the beginning of our live coverage of the Starlink 6-73 mission, a flight sending a batch of 27 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. Currently nestled in the payload fairings of the Falcon 9 rocket you see here on your screen. You're looking live at Space Launch Complex 40, otherwise known as Slick 40, here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. As we're getting things rolling, I want to thank the roughly 1,000 of you who are with us live, kicking things off as we cruise on toward a midnight liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, sharing the stream. That'll allow the YouTube algorithm to do its thing and bring this live coverage to more people as we continue on through the count. In support of tonight's launch, I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who's running the technical operations of the broadcast alongside John Pisani. Our photographers, Michael Kane and Adam Bernstein, out about getting ready to shoot the Falcon 9 once it makes its ascent from the pad. If you're not already following the team, you can find them at their handles here on X. Adam is at ABurnNYC, Michael at MD Kane Jr., John at John Pisani Photo. While you're there, be sure to follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. And if you yourself are not on X, you can also find us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook. We're also joined with tracking assistance tonight by our friends P. Carsons with Max Q Productions, as well as Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. Turning to our live chat, I want to thank our wonderful moderators as well who are standing by helping us out this evening. Big thanks to Jeff Hansen, Aussie Space Girl, and Astro Joe for kicking us off here tonight. If you see any of the other moderators cruise on into the live chat, be sure to give them a big old hello. You can also help the mods out, make their jobs a little bit easier just by following the rules of the live chat. We ask that you refrain from delving into overt politics, that you do not use all caps when conversing in the live chat, that you talk in English only so that our moderators can understand what's being said and respond as needed, and that you respect everyone in the live chat. Remember, tonight's launch could be the first for anyone out there. We want to make sure that everyone feels as welcome, whether they're joining us for the first time or for the umpteenth time. Speaking of our channel member community, want to welcome a new member, Kay Indelicate, joining us with membership at the Piloter level. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com, access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all our live launch liftoff moments from here at the Cape in 4K. Speaking of the channel member community, they are who make these live launch opportunities possible. So thanks to folks like Joni Mahoney, I Am Lita, Paul Trumpower, My Honey, and many others. RL, good evening. Laura L, Viper Z, Ryan Snyder, Wayne Coulter. Glad to have you all with us tonight. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop. Well, I mentioned all the perks just a moment or two ago, so we are very appreciative to our member community that are with us tonight. Also want to thank channel member moderator Jeff Hansen for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that, Jeff. Thanks for your continued generosity in helping to expand our community here. And to our 5 newest channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Jeff in the live chat. And we hope you decide to stick around with channel membership beyond the month you were just gifted. As a reminder, gifted membership goes to a random person, so neither the gifter nor do we have control over what direction that goes. Last little bit of housekeeping. If you have a comment or question or just want to offer a little bit of support tonight for the launch coverage, you can follow the lead of Carol DeFazio by using the YouTube Super Chat feature. And not only will he be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, she'll be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count. And all of that, my friends, is very much appreciated. Also want to thank Marcus Gallegos for gifting 5 Spacefly Now memberships. Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate that generosity. We are currently 53 minutes away from the planned launch of this Falcon 9 rocket sitting at the pad here. This, of course, will be the second Falcon 9 launch of the weekend following the successful flight of Starlink 12-17. Also setting new records, this booster B-1067, the first stage booster flying on this mission, will further cement its role as the flight leader in SpaceX's fleet. When it lifts off, it will do so for a 27th time, of course, looking for a good 27th landing as well. We'll talk more about the booster's flight history as we get a little bit later on into the countdown tonight. As far as weather conditions, you may have noticed by our wide shot, albeit a little dark, a little hard to discern, but the weather just as spectacular as it was during our last launch attempt with the Starlink 12-17 mission. Meteorologists with the 45th Weather Squadron forecast a greater than 95% chance of favorable weather conditions for a launch opportunity today. If for whatever reason things don't pan out and SpaceX needs to pause and pivot and turn around for its 24-hour backup opportunity, weather still remains greater than 95% favorable. On both days, no primary concerns of note. The additional risk criteria all trending low. So very good opportunities for launch. The only slight thing that comes into the picture tomorrow is the liftoff winds increase just a hair, and there are a few cumulus clouds that'll cruise on into the picture tomorrow as opposed to none tonight. But idyllic launch conditions either way you shake it. With just 50 minutes to go, let's go ahead and take a moment and talk about the milestones that we're going to be looking for as we cruise on through the countdown for today's preparations for the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. Of course, things begin with the go-ahead to proceed into tanking of this vehicle. SpaceX does its readiness pull at approximately T-minus 38 minutes. If it feels like it's in a good position to do so, it can take this a little bit earlier. But once that go-ahead is given, fueling of the Falcon 9 rocket begins at the 35-minute mark. Starts with the loading of RP-1, which is a rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. And at the same time, liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. T-minus 30, a cryogenic helium begins loading on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Same is true on the second stage a few minutes afterwards. That helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T minus 23 minutes, the second stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds, we'll see the strong back chill down sequence begin. That's when SpaceX is conditioning the feed lines there at the pad ahead of second stage liquid oxygen loading. We see this visually manifest by the so-called big vent here at pad 40 that starts at about T minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. That venting lasting up until 30 seconds prior to second stage liquid oxygen load, which begins at the 16-minute mark. T minus 7 minutes is when the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines gets underway. That involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps and helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank is full. T minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence. That's when the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, reclines about a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket and stays in that position until liftoff, at which point it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. 3 minutes before launch, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage about a minute thereafter, at which point Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds before liftoff. The engine ignition command is issued at T minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 at the stroke of midnight, 0400 UTC, or in just about 46 minutes and roughly 30 seconds. Just under 45 minutes to go, roughly 7 minutes until the SpaceX launch director is set to make the call on the start of prop load today. This mission, Starlink 6-73, is set to be the 460th Falcon 9 rocket launch to date and the 43rd of 2025 so far. On board this Falcon 9 are 27 Starlink V2 mini satellites. In its progress report coming out of 2024, SpaceX noted that they introduced a version of the Starlink V2 Mini called an optimized Starlink V2 Mini because these are notably lighter than their predecessors. SpaceX says they can, depending on where they are launching, they can send up to 29 of these at a time. So far, the max we've seen them launch is 28. And there are 27 on board today's Falcon 9 flight. This will be the 29th time so far this year that SpaceX has sent up a mission with Starlink satellites on board. And with this launch, the company will have sent just a hair more than 8,300 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit in total since it began Starlink launches. Of course, not all of them are still on orbit. A little more than 7,200 remain in LEO at this point in time. That's according to statistics tracked by expert orbital tracker and astronomer Jonathan McDowell. As I mentioned, today's flight of the Starlink 6-73 mission will mark another notch in the belt for tail number B1067, the flight leader for SpaceX's Falcon fleet. Taking a quick look now at the rest of the top 5 as we're getting ready to add one more to the roster of its flight leader. And the number 2 spot is B1063, currently tied with B1071 with 24 missions apiece. The number 4 spot, B1069 with 22, and bringing up the rear here on this top 5, B1076, having flown to space and back, total of 21 times. Following the launch of the Starlink 12-17 mission, here's a current look at the bar chart of Falcon launches so far over the years going back to 2010. SpaceX has stated the intent to launch between 170 to 180 launches this year with its Falcon rockets. That's, of course, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. No Falcon Heavies just yet on the docket. We're looking at the next Falcon 9 launch over at Pad 39A, SpaceX's other launch pad here in Florida. That's expected to be the launch of a cargo Dragon spacecraft up to the International Space Station, CRS-32, which is targeting a liftoff on Monday, April 21st. With just about 40 minutes to go before the planned launch of this particular Falcon 9 rocket, just a couple minutes out from the point at which the SpaceX launch director, broadly speaking, will make the call on the start of prop load. Because SpaceX doesn't broadcast mission audio before the final 5 minutes ahead of liftoff, we of course won't hear that call out, but we'll be looking for the signs of fueling after that process begins at the T-minus 35-minute mark. Taking a look at the live chat real quick. Want to thank a few folks for their support. Our thanks to K1020 for a $2 super chat. Thank you, Kay. Also want to thank Christopher Jones for a $2 super chat as well. Thank you, Christopher. And thanks again to Channel member moderator Jeff Hansen for a $5 super chat saying, "Go Cape, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink, Godspeed Workhorse 1067." Now T-minus 35 minutes and counting. At this point, assuming that SpaceX has given the go-ahead, fueling is now underway on the Falcon 9 rocket. Again, because SpaceX doesn't broadcast mission audio before the final 5 minutes of the count, and they have long since stopped announcing the start of prop load for its Starlink missions. We'll be watching for signs of fueling here, which should be evident in the next couple of minutes. While we're waiting for that, though, let's go ahead and talk about where this Falcon 9 is going to be flying once it leaves the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? Falcon 9 rocket launching satellites as part of the Starlink Group 6 collection. We'll be flying in a southeasterly trajectory following that green arc you see there on your screen. Following stage separation, the first stage booster, B-1067, will be targeting a touchdown on the drone ship called Just Read the Instructions. If successful, this will be the 115th successful touchdown on JRTI and the 431st booster landing to date. In addition to recovering this very much flight-proven booster, SpaceX is also going to endeavor to recover the payload fairings. They will splash down into the waters of the Atlantic Ocean under the support of steerable parachutes. And once down, they will be brought aboard a SpaceX recovery vessel, brought back through Port Canaveral, turned over to Hangar X here at the Kennedy Space Center, and prepared for future missions. SpaceX is working to certify both its first stage boosters as well as its payload fairings for up to 40 flights apiece. Approaching the 32-minute mark, as you take a closer look at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster, it does appear as though there's frost lines starting to form. And if you look just to the left of the booster beneath the X in SpaceX, you can see a little bit of vapor there just off to the side. And so it does appear that SpaceX is fueling its Falcon 9 rocket, which means they are committing to a T0 at midnight tonight, 0400 UTC. SpaceX uses a load and go style of fueling with its Falcon rockets. What that means is once prop load is underway, they do not have the ability to hold the countdown. So if there were to be any type of issue with the rocket or the ground systems, then that would result in a scrub for the evening. Now just under 26 minutes to go before the liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 6-73 mission. At this point, SpaceX is loading cryogenic helium onto both the Falcon 9's first and second stages. Speaking of that first stage, this is, as we mentioned, the record-setting 27th launch of this flight-leading booster, B1067. So before it goes ahead and adds one more, let's talk about where it's been on its previous 26 flights as we cruise on towards the start of the big event coming up here in the next handful of minutes. B1067 began flying with the launch of a cargo Dragon mission, CRS-22, lifting off on June 3rd of 2021. We'd fly 2 more times that year. First one being the launch of Crew 3 in November of 2021, followed by the launch of Turksat 5B communications satellite on November 19th of that year. Moving into 2022, 3 years ago, back on April 27th, was the launch of Crew 4. This was the last Dragon mission to the International Space Station that did not feature a Russian cosmonaut among its crew. That was followed up by another Dragon mission, a cargo flight, once again, CRS-25, lifting off on July 14th. This booster had its first Starlink mission right after that. That was Starlink 4-34 on September 19th of 2022. Followed up by the Hotbird 13G satellite on behalf of Eutelsat. Pair of satellites for one of SpaceX's longest-standing customers, SES, came up next. The first 2 O3B mPOWER satellites lifted off on December 16th of 2022. Then, starting in January, we had a run of Starlink missions, 3 to be exact. It's Starlink 5-2 on January 26th, 5-5 on March 23rd, and 5-9 on May 23rd. The Satria mission came next for Indonesian satellite telecommunications company PSN. Then back to Starlink land we go for a little bit. We had Starlink 6-10 on August 17th, 6-22 on October 13th, 6-29 on November 22nd, and 6-35 on January 7th of last year. That brings us to the Telkomsat Meraputa 2 mission for another Indonesia launch. Back to Starlink land we go for a little bit. We had Starlink 6-45 on March 31st, 6-65 on May 3rd, 8-5 on June 5th. This booster has flown so many times, we're moving on to page number 2, Starlink 8-3 on August 10th, and then a pair of satellites for the European Commission, Galileo FM-26 and FM-32. This is for the European equivalent of the GPS constellation. KoreaSat 6A came next on November 11th of last year. And then back to Starlinks, bringing us into the present day. Starlink 6-70 on December 4th, 12-12 on January 10th, and most recently Starlink 12-8 on February 15th of this year. Just about 21 minutes to go before the launch of Starlink 6-73. And coming up here within this next minute, we'll see the start of the so-called big vent as SpaceX conditions the feed lines there, the pad in preparation for second stage liquid oxygen loading. That vent set to begin in about 20 seconds. And we see the start of the big vent here, blowing right towards our cameras here at the press site. Let's take a lateral view. See it just a little bit more prominently from the side here. With just about 17 minutes to go before the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket, there's roughly 30 seconds remaining in this so-called big vent before that wraps up. As we're preparing to start liquid oxygen load on this Falcon 9 rocket, I want to thank a few folks here on the live chat. First off, I want to thank the 4,400 of you who are watching with us live. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, share the stream. Lots more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. I also want to thank Sam Hunter for a $5 super chat. Really appreciate that, Sam. Thanks for the support tonight. And you can see the big vent has concluded. Second stage LOX load getting ready to begin in roughly 20 seconds. Less than 13 and a half minutes to go before the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket and the Starlink 6-73 mission. Before we go ahead and see this Falcon fly, let's take a moment now to talk about the workhorse vehicle for SpaceX, of course, being the Falcon 9 rocket. Vehicle stands at 70 meters or 229 feet in height, has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Majority of that is made up by the Falcon 9's first stage booster. This one, B-1067, has flown 26 times before now, looking for number 27 tonight. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin engines, which burn a rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In that image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the vehicle's second stage. At first stage, main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Also, the second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVac engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 27 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. Like with the first stage, so goes the second stage, burning the same propellant mix, RP1 and LOX. Following the deployment of the 27 Starlink satellites, there will be a third and final burn of this upper stage engine for a deorbit burn. That burn helps drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it will burn up, helping to eliminate the risk of creating unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings, which are currently encapsulating the 27 Starlink satellites. The fairing halves are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. 2 fairing halves will float down to the waters of the Atlantic Ocean under the support of steerable parachutes, and that's where they will be recovered, brought back through to Port Canaveral, then on to the Hangar X site at the Kennedy Space Center, where they will be refurbished and turned around for future missions, as is the intent, of course, with a booster, assuming a good landing on the drone ship. 10 minutes to go for the launch of Starlink 6-73. now T-minus 7 minutes and counting. At this point, SpaceX is beginning the process of chilling the engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster by running a little bit of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps. In about 30 seconds, the first stage kerosene tank should be full as well. Taking a peek at the live chat, want to thank channel member I am Lita for a $5 super chat. Good to see you this evening, Lita, who says thanks again to all who make it possible for us to share the love of launches. Appreciate the kind words. And appreciate the 7,800 of you who are watching with us live as we cruise towards the final 6 minutes of this countdown before a midnight launch. This mission represents the 30th orbital flight from Florida's Space Coast this year. 29 of these 30 launches were using SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets. The 30th was, of course, the inaugural flight of Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket, set to launch for a second time, planning sometime in the late spring, according to Blue Origin. Still no word yet on what the payload will be for that mission. Of course, we'll keep you posted as we learn more about that second flight, the return to flight for the New Glenn rocket. Blue Origin is also planning an attempt to land the first stage booster, which has not been publicly named yet, on its recovery barge, which is named Jacqueline, after Jeff Bezos' mother. Coming up on 4.5 minutes before liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Tanks will be pressing for the strong back retract sequence here in moments. As you can see, we are getting pad level views, the Falcon 9 rocket now. Just a little bit of housekeeping here as you see the clamp arms beneath the payload fairings open up. The transporter erector, the strong back, will soon recline a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Just starting to get into motion now. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you can see our countdown clock different than what's coming in from the SpaceX feed. Reason being, our clock is in real time. What you're seeing from SpaceX is coming in on a slight delay. So as long as we have tracking views from our cameras for the Falcon 9 rocket, we'll be making callouts in real time. Now less than 3 minutes to go. The Falcon 9 first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
And we heard that call out from SpaceX. Looking for a similar call on the second stage coming up here just past the 2-minute mark. Now less than 2 minutes to go before the
Stage 2,
planned launch
lock
of
load
the
complete.
Falcon 9 rocket. And as you heard, Falcon 9 now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. The venting you're seeing here are the ground gas closeouts. SpaceX is removing any remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines. Minute and a half to go.
Ground gas closeouts.
And as we approach the final minute of the count, want to quickly thank Jen for a $5 super chat saying love the night launches. And thanks to Karen B for a $10 super chat. Appreciate you both. T-minus 1 minute and counting. At this point, the Falcon 9 is in startup. Should be hearing a call for that momentarily.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And we are now just awaiting the final call from the SpaceX launch director that they are, in fact, go for launch.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with that call, less than 30 seconds to go before the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. 20 seconds.
T-minus 30 seconds.
15 seconds. Here we go in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the Starlink 6-73 mission from Pad 40. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. A very clear night here in Florida as we're now passing the 2-minute mark, coming up on main engine cutoff for MECO at about T plus 2 minutes and 24 seconds. That'll be followed by stage separation and then second stage engine start. Bearing separation coming up just before the 3-minute mark. And we have MECO. Stage separation. And second stage engine start. Payload fairing jettison coming up. And there you see those fairings go. Now about 3.5 minutes into flight, we're coming up on the first stage entry burn, which is set to begin at just before the 6-minute mark. That's when SpaceX will use 3 of the Merlin engines at the base, the Falcon booster stage, to slow the vehicle down. Now approaching 5 minutes into flight. Got about a minute to go before the first stage entry burn begins. Coming up on the start of the entry burn here in the next few seconds. And Adam with the entry burn. Pete's got it as well. Well done, gentlemen. This burn lasting less than 30 seconds in total.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
With the conclusion of that entry burn, we're now looking for the start of the landing burn coming up here at about T plus 7 minutes and 48 seconds. That'll use just one of the Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon booster.
Stage 2 FTS safe.
The call I just heard, the flight termination system has no longer will be in use at this point in the flight. Landing burn set to begin in roughly 20 seconds in real time, just a hair later than that based off of the SpaceX feed.
Stage 1 transonic.
Falcon booster now traveling below the speed of sound.
Stage 1 landing burn. Landing leg deploy.
Stage 2 and terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And for a 27th time, B-1067 has completed its trip to space and back.
And back shutdown.
And with the conclusion of the upper stage engine burn, the Falcon 9 second stage will enter into a parking orbit where we'll continue to cruise until about T plus 54 minutes and 6 seconds. There will be a brief 1 second burn to help circularize the orbit. And the Starlink satellites will be deployed at about T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 14 seconds post liftoff. Back here at pad 40, SpaceX will bring that strung back up into the upright position over the course of the next minute or two here. It's part of the process of turning around this pad as quickly as possible for future flights. Bringing things to a close, let's go ahead and take a look at our mission stats where they currently stand. With a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster, that marked the end of flight number 27 for Falcon 9 booster B-1067. This was SpaceX's 460th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 43rd of 2025. This is the 401st Falcon booster reflight, with a launch of a booster that has flown at least once. SpaceX's 139th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 244th orbital launch in total from pad 40. This was also the 298th overall orbital launch from this pad. Here's a look at the bar chart as it now stands with this mission in the books as far as booster liftoff and landing. Moving on to some recovery stats, the safe landing of B-1067 marked the 115th landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. The 344th drone ship landing for SpaceX, and the 431st overall SpaceX booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 30th orbital launch from the Sunshine State so far, the 44th launch from U.S. soil, the 49th from U.S. Rocket Company, including the 5 missions so far in the year from Rocket Lab down in New Zealand. And this was the 76th orbital launch attempt globally, with 1 orbital failure on the year so far. Here's where the pie chart now currently stands. US continuing to lead the way with its 49 launches, China with 19 so far on the year. Before we go ahead and bid you adieu, I want to thank a few more folks in the live chat for your support tonight. Our thanks to Walking Roscoe, one of our channel members, with a $10 super chat. Says missing watching these launches while in Florida. Or miss watching them with his girlfriend while he's in Florida. William Barrera with a $2 super chat. Thank you, William. And thanks to Jason Collins for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that generosity, Jason. And a welcome aboard to our 5 newest channel members. We're glad you're all with us. And if you haven't already, be sure to thank Jason in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. And that's going to do it for us this evening, my friends. Be sure to head on over whenever you're curious about what's coming up next to check on the launch schedule. Just head on over to spaceflightnow.com. Click on the launch schedule tab. That way you'll know what's coming around the proverbial corner for launches. Next mission coming up on the West Coast, I believe will be a launch, not of a Falcon 9 rocket, but actually of a Northrop Grumman Minotaur 4 satellite, or a rocket, I should say, launching multiple payloads that are classified on behalf of the National Reconnaissance Office. That's the NROL 174 mission, targeting liftoff on April 16th. Specific launch time has not been announced for that just yet. Next, Falcon 9 flying from Vandenberg, set to be the launch of the NROL 145 mission, supporting the NRO's so-called proliferated architecture, believed to be comprised of Starshield satellites. I want to thank our friends Pete Carstens with MaxQ Productions, Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images for supporting tonight's launch. See Lucia, one of our channel members, hitting at the buzzer with a $2 super chat. Really appreciate that. Says big thank you. And a big thank you right back to you. Our thanks to our moderators in the live chat, to Jeff Hansen and Astro Joe for holding it down, as well as Aussie Space Girl. Appreciate all of you helping out tonight. One of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, saying that the Minotaur looks like it's set to fly at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. So, barring weather delays or other potential technical issues, look for confirmation of that launch coming up in the next few days. I want to thank our photography team and of excuse me, of John Pisani, of Michael Kane, and Adam Bernstein. Thanks to John as well for running the bells and whistles behind the scenes with our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young. Most importantly, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from with this launch. You can tell my voice is getting to be at the end of its wits, so I'm going to go ahead and stop talking now. So, appreciate all of you being with us, and for all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I am Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. Until then, bye-bye.